Well, after tagging my first deer ever with a rifle in early November, I still had one rifle tag left in my pocket. But this hunt would be quite different. Instead of hunting whitetails in the big woods, I'll be chasing rutting mule deer in the wide open prairie country. Now, the prairie region of the Great Plains holds a special place in my heart. As someone who loves to watch and photograph wildlife, the prairie is rich with both game and non-game species, big and small, some incredibly fast, and others, well, not so much. But one thing is certain though, I have a deep respect for the animals that call this place home and can survive in this breathtaking, but at times brutally harsh environment. So going into this hunt, it's now mid-November and the rut is kicking into high gear and the mule deer bucks are highly visible as they're either with doe groups or moving from group to group in search of a hot doe. So with the rifle season just a day away, I set out on a 6-day prairie hunting trip. My main focus, of course, is rifle hunting for mule deer. But I also brought my shotgun along to take advantage of any opportunities to hunt upland birds, which is something I love to do, but just don't get a lot of time for. But first up on my road trip, I'm heading out with my bow and a decoy for one last attempt at punching my archery tag before the rifle season begins.
Had to call a little bit of an audible this morning. I couldn't get to the spot that I wanted to get to, which is in about another 75 yards. As soon as I got to the edge of the cattails here, I could hear a buck raking his antlers. There's another buck right there. He's pawing the ground. There's another buck close by. But anyway, there's just deer all over in here. I couldn't get any farther than this. But there's a little bit of a depression right here where I can just kind of get down and hide. Just pop the decoy up right here in front of me. There's not a stitch of wind, so it's going to be pretty tough to get away with anything, but this is the best I could do. There's so many deer down in here, but I was fortunate to get in here and not blow anything out. Had that buck come into the decoy. As they often do, he was looping downwind, which my wind is going like that. There's a little cut right there. He went through that cut and then came up on top and got downwind of me at about 25 yards or so. He came from 300-400 yards away and eventually saw the decoy right here. So I think this definitely could work. I just kind of stay hidden in this low spot, got the decoy up here, got in the game the best I could. With these calm conditions, it's just so hard to get into a spot in wide open country like this without just blowing all the deer out. So the wind has been a little funky this morning too. There's the coyotes. But it was supposed to be out of the north, and it's coming dead opposite direction. It's kind of out of the south, and it's just light and variable, and now I can kind of feel it hit me on the back of the neck. I mean, just not ideal, but these are the conditions I've been dealt. Well, it's been a fun morning here. Had that little buck around me for the last 15 minutes, and he did exactly what I hoped a buck would do this morning. Got to within probably 15 yards at the closest and was just working back and forth around me. Oh, if only that would have been a shooter. That would have been perfect.
Well, after an action-packed morning, I continued on down the road to my destination where I'd be hunting for the next 5 days in my rifle tag unit. Along the way, I saw plenty of mule deer, whitetails, and pheasants to get me fired up, and after a short sleep, I was more than ready to head out onto the prairie and start hunting for rutting mule deer.
All right, here we go. Day 2, first day of my mule deer rifle hunt. It's the calm before the windstorm here. The weather is going to be pretty comfortable today, but the next 2 days it's going to be cold and the wind is going to be blowing 30 to 60 miles per hour, just crazy windy. So with that in mind, my plan is to spend the day hunting on foot and work my way deep into this piece of public, and then the next couple days I'll probably spend more time in the truck driving around scouting and looking for deer that way while the weather conditions are less than ideal. It's kind of backwards of how we normally approach hunting a new area. Usually we spend the first day or a couple of days driving around and familiarizing ourselves with the area. But I did see a good number of mule deer in this general area this summer when I drove around. So that's the plan. I've got several high points marked where I'll glass from, and depending on what I see, just move in deeper and glass, move, glass. But anyways, I'm excited. This is my first rifle mule deer hunt. I can't shoot a whitetail, but I'm hoping to tag my first mule deer buck. So here we go. First spot I'm looking at here, there's looks like 5 does and fawns. I don't see a buck with them. Good start, fine deer at least. Man, what a spectacular morning. These prairie sunrises are just incredible. Well, I figured if I was in the neighborhood of those does long enough, eventually a buck would come check them out. Sure enough, there was 2 of them, but they're both a little bit younger bucks. But anyways, that's the first draw that I just checked out there, and 5 does and fawns, 2 bucks. Got a lot of ground to cover yet, so I'm gonna keep on moving here. Yeah, there's a good one in that group right there. Well, these deer are bedded down just on the backside of a hill. There's one really nice buck and a couple small bucks that he's run off, and there's 5 or 6 does. I don't know that mule deer bucks technically have harems and defend them like elk do, but I think this kind of group is pretty typical during the rut. But the only problem is I'm pretty sure they're on private land right now, but it's a little confusing because there's a double fence and they're in between the fences, and I can't quite tell which one is the actual boundary fence, but I'm pretty sure they're actually on private. But I've got plenty of terrain to work with, so I'm going to move in closer and just get a better look at what's going on. But if they are on public, then I should be able to get to within rifle range without too much trouble, just using the roll in the terrain. But I just don't think they are. There we go. That's a nice one. Yeah, that would do. That's good to know. There must not be a ton of people coming back in here if a shed has a pretty obvious one. Just laying here. Heck yeah, keep that. That's fun to pack out sheds, but hopefully be packing out some meat today as well. Well, now that I can see the fence line, I can tell that that biggest buck is in that group of deer, not on public. But just keep looking into more country, and who knows, maybe those deer will eventually end up over on this side of the fence. Well, it's about noon right now. Made it over to where that group of deer was bedded, over on the other side, across on private. They're about 550 yards away right now, and they're probably 150 yards away from the fence line. The buck is bumping does around, so hopefully this could get them moving towards public ground where I can try to get at them. We'll see. Seems like they can't decide exactly what they want to do. Hopefully they'll cross the fence onto public. That's what I'd like to see them do. Well, those deer are long gone. Thought everything might work out because the ranchers were kind of in the distance doing their thing. It got the deer up and moving. The buck was bumping does. They started working towards the fence line. They were still over on private, but they weren't far from public. And if they would have crossed on my side of the fence, they'd already been within rifle range. Guy comes buzzing around on a four-wheeler. He's got a dog running, and a guy on a UTV comes pulling up, yelling at him, "Daniel, Daniel." Meanwhile, the mule deer are taking off into the next county, I'd say. So now they're well onto private, so don't have to worry about hanging out here, seeing if they're going to cross back over. At least they probably won't anytime soon. But it's midday. Might be a good time just to head back to the truck, cut my losses here. Now that the ranchers are out buzzing around, I can still hear them over the hill. They've kind of driven through the whole property, it sounds like. Fair amount of action for the first day here. Found a bunch of deer, just no shot opportunities yet.
Well, as promised, the next day a cold front blew in with 30 to 35 mile per hour sustained winds and gusts up to 60 miles per hour.
Goodness. I mean, that is some wind right there.
With the fierce prairie winds howling, I spent the day driving around, glassing for deer from the truck, and just trying to learn more about the unit that I was hunting. But with the deer mostly hunkered down, sightings were scarce, but I did manage to get eyes on some grouse and partridge and made a few quick hunts with the shotgun close to the truck.
Got one. They just tried to flush him into the wind, but man, they hooked and they got going. Thought I missed him at first, but he just fell out of the sky. Nice little hun. That's awesome.
Well, the next morning, the wind was every bit as strong, and once again, I started the day in the vehicle. But this time, I was having better luck finding deer on, or at least close to public land, including this mule deer buck that was working this doe like a well-trained cutting horse. Encouraged by the bucks I saw from the road, I decided to head into this big chunk of public land where I could glass and still hunt a creek bottom that meandered for several miles through the prairie. While I questioned my sanity a little bit for going full send into the wind, it didn't take long before I found a group of mule deer does and fawns, but unfortunately, there wasn't a buck with them. A couple miles deeper in, I came across a small whitetail buck that acted like there was a hot doe down in the creek bottom, so I quickly moved in, hoping there would be a bigger buck with the suspected doe. Sure enough, it didn't take long to find the doe, and there was indeed a bigger buck bedded with her in the creek bottom. Unfortunately, he wasn't quite what I was hoping to shoot, at least as far as a whitetail buck goes, and especially when it would require a 3.5 mile pack out. So having made my way through the entire creek bottom, I turned my back to the wind and made the long walk back to the truck. But as I wrapped up the 4th day, the wind started to subside and the forecast was looking great for the next day. With bitterly cold temperatures, but light winds, I decided to head back into the same piece I hunted the first day with high hopes of getting an opportunity at a mule deer buck.
Sun is just coming up here. I'm sitting on a high point looking into a ton of country. This is the same general area that I hunted the first day, where I saw a lot of deer, saw a couple nice bucks. But the wind has finally let up after 2 days of just brutally windy conditions. But it's bitterly cold this morning. The wind chills it feels like temperature is about 5 degrees, but just a really pretty frosty morning here. Haven't seen anything yet, but I'm going to spend some time glassing from the high points around here this morning, see if I can find those deer that I saw the other day. Kind of a slow start to the morning, nothing really moving yet, but I'd imagine they'll get going here after the 2 really, really windy days. It's about 8 o'clock right now. I just came from where I started out glassing over on the kind of on the other side of this big long ridge. I could see into a ton of country over there, and all I saw over there was one doe fawn. But anyways, I'm working towards a spot where I saw a bunch of mule deer the other day, including one nice buck, but they stayed over on the private side. I'm gonna slip over here and see if I can get eyes on anything, because there just wasn't much going on that other side. Right there, there's a buck bumping a doe. Not a huge buck, but decent. They're over on the private land side again. Pretty much the same exact spot where I saw them last time, a few days ago. We'll see, they're not far from the public side. There's several different bucks. Well, he's just dogging that doe. That's cool. They're kind of starting to work their way towards the line. The doe is kind of angling that way. I mean, the line that they're on right now, they look like they might end up over on this side. There's even more deer filtering back in here. Yeah, they're angling more that way. Get a loose side of them soon, and they're angling towards my side of the fence. I better make a move here. There, they just crossed over. over the point of this next ridge here, which means they're probably going to be fairly close. Can't see them yet. They've got to be just right down over the crest of this ridge. I can't see them anywhere else. It's the right direction they were headed. Down. He's down for the count. First mule deer buck. That is awesome. He's down right there. He didn't go 30 yards. There goes the doe. Yes. That is awesome. He's just down right there. There's a little water hole right there. That doe was standing on the edge of it. He was just a little bit farther up the bank. They started out over here at a water hole as well. Those are little cattail slough with water, but it's all frozen over. I spotted him back there. I was a few hundred yards in that direction, and they just kept, that buck was just dogging that doe. He was just on her tail the whole time. They kept angling this way, angling this way. I don't think I got any footage of the buck going over the fence, but I saw the doe and the fawn slip through. They started angling this way. I thought maybe there's a big cut. I thought maybe they're going to go back up the cut, but instead they just worked their way around the point of this. Hit him on the first one. He just kind of absorbed it and then started walking right to left. Chambered another one, shot again, and then he made it a total of, I don't know, 30 yards. He's down right there. Oh, that was fun. Here comes another buck. I wonder if he's gonna... So he's just gonna go around. Oh no, spooked him. And it's happening back here. Had that little buck walk by, and there's 2 more deer up on the hill. Heck yeah. Look at that wide thing. That's just so cool. I mean, doesn't have a lot of points. He got one broken off, but just a big wide frame. I mean, they're just such cool animals. Just that really gray muzzle. Man, that is awesome. You can see right back up to that point I was on. They were just in a perfect spot. They were right over at the water hole here. Curious to see if there's much for a blood trail. Not that he went very far, not that I need a blood trail, but it's always interesting to see. There's good blood there. Yeah, there's good blood all the way back to where he was. I mean, they were just in the perfect spot for me. This is that water hole I was talking about. It's dried down quite a bit, but there's still some water in it, but it's all frozen over. I'm just wondering if that's why that doe crossed over here, because all those deer filtered down through that other little water hole on the other side of the fence. And that was perfect just to slip up the backside of that hill, look down there right here, maybe 150 yards. This guy is a bit of a scrapper. Obviously broke off one of his tines, got a hole in his ear. He's got a scab on the backside of the other ear, but he was the biggest one I saw this morning. And you know, coming down to the last day and a half, I wasn't gonna be super picky. And when I found this guy dogging that doe, and when I crested the ridge and saw them down below there, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna make the most of this opportunity. You know, now that I think about it, if it seemed like, you know, it was taking a long time to get the shot off, well, first of all, you know, self-filming, it's always it just takes more time to get the camera on the deer, make sure you're getting good footage, lining up for the shot and all that. But the primary thing that was on my mind was that there was another hunter out here this morning. He pulled in behind me. You know, he came out here and hunted, you know, just kind of the opposite side of this drainage. But when I was making a move on these deer, I looked up across this drainage and I saw him. So when I got set up and these deer were below me, I was trying to get the camera on them, but I was glassing the opposite hillside, just making sure that that guy wasn't downrange of me somehow, that he wasn't going to pop over the hill and just be right there and put potentially both of us in a dangerous situation. But I mean, the good thing is the shot was about as safe as it could be. You know, I'm up on a high perch, the deer are down below me. I've got a hill for a backstop, but man, bullets can do funky things. Jake and I had an experience where we were down range of a shooting range, and we got to a spot where all of a sudden we had bullets zipping over our head. They were coming up the hill. You would think with a backstop of a shooting range that it would trap all the bullets, but the way this guy was shooting, you know, he wasn't shooting necessarily into the backstop. He was shooting at targets closer to him and skipping rounds, you know, off of the ground and up over the hill. And like I said, Jake and I had bullets zipping over our heads. You know, safety and etiquette are important things while hunting, not just on public land, but, you know, anywhere, obviously. But that was definitely on my mind, and that's definitely why it took, you know, longer to get a shot off. But I'm thrilled with this guy. My first mule deer buck. It was a lot of fun watching him tend that doe, and actually, you know, over the past week, I've seen a lot of rutting activity. This has just been a lot of fun. It's been an awesome trip. It is the last day of my hunt here. Plan for today, obviously, as you can see, I've got the camera out. I'm just gonna drive around. I still have my bow tags, so if I see a good buck on public land, try to go after him with the bow. I did see a big group of mule deer. There was a buck in there chasing does. As I pulled up, thinking about how would I even try to get on that deer with my bow with all those sets of eyes. There was another guy parked there back in there hunting. So there's been a fair amount of hunting pressure, a little bit more than I anticipated, but actually there's deer right there, a couple mule deer out by those hay bales. Actually, that's a buck. Let's see what he is here. Okay, he's got that doe pinned up against the hay bales. But it's always interesting to see how bucks will use objects or terrain features like hay bales. We've seen that before. Rivers against any kind of water, against roadways, anything like that. When they're trying to isolate them and keep them away from other deer, they'll use anything they can to try to keep them pinned down and keep them isolated. And this buck is using about the only thing he's got out there, and that's the hay bales. Anyways, that's the plan for today. If I find a good buck to go after with the bow, do that, do some bird hunting, and do some filming. 3 things that I really enjoy. So it's already been one heck of a trip, so we'll see what else happens today. If anything, if I could keep putting some birds in the bag, that'd be awesome. There we go. When I'm solo pheasant hunting like this, especially without a dog, these are the kinds of patches of cover that I try to walk that are, manageable for one person to walk through. I can kind of weave through these cattails and, work it pretty effectively, as opposed to just walking in a sea of grass where birds can tend to run. So I'm just going to slowly work through these cattails and, just kind of by walking, stopping, breaking up that cadence. Sometimes it'll confuse or make the birds panic to the point where, hopefully flush within range. Maybe otherwise we'll let you just walk on by, but head on in here and see what I can do. Sharp tail down. First bird of the day. Sharp tail. Man, their feathered feet are so cool. Plumage as well. Man, they're really cool birds. I've seen a bunch of them this morning. Holy cow, there's a whole bunch of them that just flew out of that tree. I've been seeing them up in the trees this morning. And there they go. Sharp tails all over in here. Out over the cattails. Sharp tail number 2. They are just piled up in here. And a rooster. Holy cow. Alright, sharp tail's right there. Rooster's right there. Oh man, look at that. The boy's got some sharp spurs on him. Wow. Oh man, he came up perfectly. That is gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. This little patch of cats, the truck's right there, just started making a loop. Got a sharp tail up. Got a second sharp tail. And then this rooster, good grief. All in this short little stretch here. What a stalk. Holy cow, perfect. Absolutely perfect. He got up kind of in the sun. I had to give him a while to fly out to make sure it was actually a rooster. Then I saw the ring neck and it was good to go. It never gets old. Both of these roosters this morning have held just perfect. Got up, nice, easy shots. Man.
Yeah. Yep, I'm gonna work these drainages here.
I'll go down there. I got a couple dogs that go down there in the draw. Yeah.
The same one I'm gonna walk through here?
I'm gonna walk from this way. I'll go the other way. I'll drop down here. I got one real old that I got to keep on the leash, and then I got one that's pretty good.
Whatever you want to do.
You bet, yeah.
Well, it's midday now, heading into a different spot, and just started walking in. And there's a guy that pulled up behind me. And he asked if I was bird hunting. I said, yeah, I'm gonna walk this draw down here. He said, well, okay, I'm gonna go down to the other end and just walk it back at you. It's just cracks me up that somebody would purposely come in and walk the same piece that you're hunting and walk it at you. You know, so you'd be potentially shooting at each other. Granted, with shotguns, it's, you know, there's a margin of safety there. You never know what you're gonna run into for people on public land and what kind of etiquette they have or don't have. So keeps it interesting. I would never dream of just walking in and hunting the same draw that somebody is already hunting. But I mean, to each their own, it's public land. And oh yeah, he got up cackling. That was awesome. Heck yeah. Another beautiful rooster pheasant, and that, look at that tail fan. That makes a limit of roosters, so now I've got one sharp tail left I can shoot, and then Hungarian partridge. Love bird hunting. I'd rather be hunting with my dog or hunting or with family and friends, but solo bird hunting can be done and can be effective. I'm on the road heading back home, wrapping up my week-long prairie hunt here. Got to experience a lot that the Great Plains has to offer, not only with the deer hunting, but with the upland bird hunting, with some of the crazy weather, and also getting to enjoy just the landscape itself. Really couldn't have asked for a better way to wrap up this week of hunting out on the prairie.